Hello, Digital Marketing 3 students. Welcome to lesson 29 of Digital Marketing 3, where we are going to be discussing the political forces influencing the digital macro environment. So in the previous lessons, we discussed the economic impact on the digital macro environment. We also did a case study analysis on the Takealot, like how the global forces from an economic point of view influence the supply and demand of the Takealot e-commerce. So now we'll be looking at another aspect of the digital macro environment, which is the political forces. So the lesson objectives that are at the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the political control and democracy. You should be able to understand internet governance. You should be able to understand taxation, and you should be able to understand social media and political change. So these are some of the aspects of the political forces influencing digital marketing strategy. The aspects, they are so broad depending on the context. So I'm just going to give you some of the few aspects that I've come across, but it is your duty as students to read widely, to start to have an in-depth study to understand the broad political forces influencing digital marketing strategy, planning, implementation, and performance. So these are some of the key terms that you are going to come across as you proceed with this session. You are going to come across the concept of e-government. You are going to come across the concept of internet governance. You are going to come across the concept of democracy. You are going to come across the concept of taxation, as well as the concept of political change. So I strongly advise you to go and read on these concepts and also understand how these concepts influence digital marketing strategy. I know we spend most of the time on our phones. We spend most of the time browsing and searching for information on the phone, on our phones, thinking that the internet cannot be controlled. However, the internet can be controlled by platform owners. It can be controlled by the government as well. So before we go through, before we start lesson 29, I just want to pose a question for you, just to have some deep thoughts on digital marketing and everything that you know about politics, everything that you know about governance. How do political forces influence digital marketing? So I want to have this question in your mind as we unpack some of the theoretical concepts that are related to the political forces influencing digital marketing strategy, influencing digital marketing planning, influencing digital marketing implementation, as well as influencing digital marketing performance. So let's have a look at the political environment. Political forces can have implications for digital marketing strategy and planning. The political environment is shaped by the interplay of government agencies, public opinion, and consumer pressure groups, and the industry-backed organization. So I'll give you an example that will sort of stimulate the role of politics in the digital marketing arena. Think of the clicks advert, the one that caused some sort of uproar in South Africa when there was an advert saying that black females' hair is not so good compared to white females' hair. There were some political forces shaping it on Twitter, the one which is currently called X. We have got a term that we normally use on a daily basis called Black Twitter. So there was a discourse amongst the Black Twitter community, spearheaded by the EFF, spearheaded by other political parties, driving the narrative to boycott clicks and its brand, to boycott clicks and its products. So this had a huge impact on the clicks digital marketing strategy. They had to present themselves as a brand that is not racist, because the narrative that was driven there was to some extent clicks was sort of portrayed as a brand that is racist, that is sort of like denigrating black women's hair. So there were political forces influencing the way clicks presents itself on the digital space. For example, clicks was tagged, it was mentioned, its digital asset on social media platforms were brought into this discussion. So therefore, anyone who works at Clicks as part of the social media marketing or the digital marketing department, they had to be aware of the political forces influencing the way they can engage with Clicks customers, the way they can engage with the wider internet audience. So the political environment has many factors that influence the trading environment, such as taxation, investment, and management of business and public affairs. So this was the public affair. And if it is not controlled, or if you do not come up with strategies to navigate this political dilemma, customers may end up boycotting the brand. All of a sudden, the brand may find itself in an operational limbo whereby people are boycotting its products, people are downgrading its brand. Also, apart from political parties and the influence and political people and consumer pressure groups and the impact that they may have on brands, we also need to understand the government's influence. So the government's influence over the economy has an impact on overall economic performance and also on business investment. I think we've come across this on several occasions where you hear that South Africa has been downgraded by the credit rating. So that has got an impact on the economy, and the government is headed by politicians. The government is headed by legislators. So this is why we put this influence under the political forces. So when you look at the political forces, you look at political control and democracy. We look at internet governance, we look at taxation, and we look at social media and political change. So these are the aspects that we look at, because they do drive sentiment in the digital community. Remember, during the first day, we spoke about the digital community, we spoke about the digital natives, the digital refugees, the digital immigrants. So they are also shaped by political forces, and ultimately they have an influence on the brands that they interact with. They've got an influence on the brand that they associate with. They've got an influence on the brands that they are affiliated with. Remember, as much as we call South Africa a rainbow nation, it can be arguably called a divided society as well, where everything is scrutinized. There's like a sort of a public scrutiny. Think about things of the past, things such as discrimination, things such as inequality, things such as racism, things such as knowledge decolonization. So they do have an impact on how people engage on social media platforms. This thing of Black consciousness, this thing of Black child. So there are narratives, there are sentiments that digital marketers need to be well aware of when they engage with their target audience, because if they are not aware of those forces, it can just end up being a political debate. So digital marketers need to understand how they promote their brands. They need to understand how they engage with audience when promoting products and how to use the digital platforms. So in conclusion, political forces are closely intertwined with economic forces. For example, the government sets financial goals for the South African Reserve Bank, which in turn sets interest rates to control inflation. Therefore, the government's influence over the economy has an impact overall on economic performance and also business investment. At least with South Africa, the influence of the government is somehow limited because of the executive powers. But in some countries, like in Uganda, you can also be taxed for using internet. Like there's a certain portion that you pay on your data in order to be on social media platform, in order to be on the internet. And I highly encourage you to go and read about internet taxation in Uganda. It does happen, and some governments can also completely shut down the internet, especially when there are threats to national security, or if they just want to squash, protests that are driven for political change. So the government can have ultimate influence on how people access content. For example, in China, China has got control on how people access internet in that country. Google is controlled. Social media platforms are controlled in China. So you can actually see the influence in how digital marketers can engage with audience, especially if the government is in the way. So it is important for digital marketers to be aware that political action enacted through government agencies to control the adoption of the internet includes promoting the benefits of adopting the internet for consumers and businesses to improve a country's economic prosperity, sponsoring research leading to dissemination of best practice amongst brands, enacting legislation to regulate the environment, for example, to protect privacy and control taxation. It can also include involvement